I'm Bishop Lisa Weah, and I am here with some of my sisters, some of my sister Vilomah mothers. This is the beginning of the vision for the Vilomah Journey broadcast. This is our podcast that we're going to be bringing to you each and every Monday. So make sure you log on. Make sure you get on to Dr. Lisa Weah at YouTube and follow. We're going to be sharing it on all of our pages. I'm so excited to have these powerful women of God joining us. They'll be joining us weekly, and we're also going to have some other guests. This is not intended to be the popular podcast, because this is the club that no one wants to be in. We do not enjoy welcoming new members to this club because it's the worst of tragedies that actually brought us here. We're all here because we have lost at least one child. Vilomah is the ancient Sanskrit term that means out of the natural order. And so it's not by any means to minimize any other type of loss. In fact, we're going to discuss some of the cumulative grief that occurs from multiple losses in life. But there's a uniquely, I would say, horrifying element to burying someone who came from our own bodies. From the time we're old enough to understand the circle of life, we know that we're supposed to bury our parents. We know that one day we'll bury our siblings, or our siblings will bury us. We know when we marry, we say till death do us part. So we know there's a 50-50 chance that day will come, but nowhere in any part of us are we ever prepared. Even knowing the risk of pregnancies, even though we may set up life insurance policies, especially, and we're going to talk about this in some future broadcasts also, for Black women, pregnancy is a whole nother situation. This podcast is intended to deal with a different kind of loss, and it's the horrific experience of losing a child, and then the journey of life without that child. We are here to empower women, even as we empower one another, even as we learn to grow around our own grief, even as we learn to navigate a world where our children are not. And we learn that His grace really is sufficient. It's not easy. So we need each other. That's what these conversations are all about: courage, comfort, connection. Somebody at this table, this pink table talk. We were just joking about how this is the pink table talk. Somebody at this table every week is going to say the very thing that you, a Vilomah mom, have been thinking. Somebody's going to talk about the very thing that you've been feeling. Someone's going to ponder the questions that you've been wondering. Someone's going to speak to things that you've been worrying about. And so our prayer for you is that you will tune in, that you will get what you need, and that you will be empowered for this Vilomah journey. And so we're going to start today simply by telling our stories. I want to introduce to you, y'all know my bestie, Minister Chana Johnson. She is therapist par excellence. She's like the smartest person that I know. And she is the owner and CEO of Aspire Inc., where she offers services and especially ministers and counsels persons who've experienced child loss, prenatal loss, things like that. My other sister, she is our senior most Vilomah, Minister Inez Franklin, powerful woman of God, and she is the CEO and the founder of the Davon Green Franklin Foundation. And so each week we'll give you information about what each of us is doing. As you know, I am the convener of the Vilomah Gathering. which is held annually, and we'll be talking about that as we move forward. But we're going to start with Minister Inez today. Many of us were just heartbroken, even just a few weeks ago, when we heard of the drowning of Theo Huxtable, Malcolm Jamal Warner, and we Vilomah Moms reached out to Minister Inez because her story so aligns with what just happened to him. And she's going to share her story with you. We wish we could, spend an hour just talking with each of us, but we're going to give you the Cliff Notes version so that we can dive into deeper dialogue. But Minister Inez, thank you so much for coming to the Pink Table today. And won't you share with us?
Well, first, thanks for having me, and it's great to be in excellent company. Thanks for creating a safe space for moms. Um, my story actually began, I want to say, back in 1987 when I had given birth to um, what I considered life's most precious possession in the form of Davon Green Franklin. And so, having had the opportunity to be his mom just brought me so much joy, so much joy, so many proud moments I had with him. As a matter of fact, I shared that I was self-employed for almost 20 plus years of his life. And at first I didn't understand why God would have me to be at home, but having lost him at the tender age of 22, I became so grateful that God did allow me to have all that time with him. Um, in terms of his coming into the world and then God calling him home to glory, March 14th was a day that I will never forget. Having waken up that morning to attend church and just sitting in the sanctuary, and feeling a stirring in my spirit and not knowing what it was. And then going to a movie and just feeling kind of weird on the inside, and finally making it home from the movie. And we started to plan Davon's graduation trip, and the phone rings, and I had no idea that when I answered the phone, there was going to be a call that would shake my world in the most turbulent way. And so I get the call, and as soon as I realized I was on a three-way conversation, I realized that this is serious. And the young lady said, there's been an accident. And my immediate response was, is my son alive? Because if he was alive, anything else could be fixed. And so hearing that devastating news that my son had transitioned, and the fact that he transitioned in another country, that in itself was another layer. So my house went from being a home to being a command center, where we would then have to begin facilitating him back into the United States. And let me say, we not only loved our child, but we loved who God had created him to be. And so that love went into um, us finding a way to get him back to the US, because that's just another layer of grief. He's not here, and now we're left to try to figure out how to get him back home. Little did I know the steps that I would be making later on, I would have to repeat those processes for other people. Mm-hmm. And so we went from getting the news to becoming this command center, which at the time encompassed a lot of individuals. Our pastor, he was there for us. Davon's friends got there. We were getting phone calls from across the United States, you know, individuals wanting to know what happened, news media. And so all of that, you know, was hitting us all at once. And so I realized I'm going to have to step back just a little bit so I can get anchored in my faith. Because this was uncharted territory.
Yeah.
We had married people, we had buried people, but this was somehow different. And so, you know, we would go through, you know, the process of dealing with the U.S. State Department, having to plan a funeral, having to have his remains still in a foreign country, money's trying to be extorted from us. And so, yeah, it was very tense, and all the while grieving, and then having to shelve your grief so that you can do what you need to do for your child.
Yeah.
And so we were able to get Davon back to the United States, and Von Green, he was very instrumental in that. And again, you know, our bishop was very instrumental in, you know, providing the spiritual support that was so necessary for us. And we never really had any downtime, you know. And I would later realize, and we're probably, I'm sure it's, you know, slated to be in another podcast about the effects that it has on your physical body and your spiritual, you know, well-being. And so just getting him back to United States, preparing his funeral, and then finally sitting down and taking a breath to say, how do I go on? Because I am still Davon's mom. I am still his mom. And so this podcast, I could see it being beneficial for so many other people, you know, in terms of them being able to say, now I understand why I was feeling the way, you know, I was feeling, and moving the way that I was moving, you know, through life.
Yeah, because I think Sean and I both said, sitting down with you after we lost our daughters and hearing you describe what the experience was like for you
definitely
helped us so much, because you feel like you're having the most out of body, I'm not going to make it type of experience. And then to hear that, well, this is what happened to me. Oh, that's normal, because this is such an abnormal experience. Inez, tell us about Davon.
Oh my gosh.
We knew Davon. We knew Davon. We loved Davon. He was the son everybody wanted to have.
Absolutely.
Okay. He was
the son that we wanted our sons to grow up and be. 100%.
So tell everybody about Davon.
Oh my gosh. Even from a young age, my husband, Elder Franklin, and we realized that there was something very special about this kid. You know, he walked earlier. He definitely talked earlier. He loved his parents, and he just loved life, and he loved being around people, and just having that opportunity to be a part of his life. And we just, everything was a celebration, you know. Lose it too, it's a celebration, you know. Going off to middle school, celebration, cake, balloons, because we just loved him so much, and we could see his spiritual development even at a young age, you know. I went back and looked at one of his first journals, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, God was really using him at such a tender age, you know, from, you know, even preschool and middle school, high school, and certainly going off to college. You know, we got so many stories from his friends stating that, you know, Davon had a church without walls. You know, individuals sought him out, you know, for wisdom and spiritual guidance. And one phone call I'll never forget, a young lady called, and I was like, okay, but she was actually calling to tell me that she had a crisis prior to coming to Howard University. And that's, where Davon attended. And she said that Davon was the reason why, she was still alive, because he helped her work through,
Wow.
some trauma that she had in her life, and helped her to realize that it wasn't, the end of her life. And she said, well, I would never say that Davon was perfect. She said, but he came pretty close.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was glad that he was able to use his
Yeah.
gifts while at Howard University as
Yeah.
well.
So he was a student at Howard. He was graduating that spring,
Yes.
and his major was
Administration of Justice and Political Science. Yeah.
and he was a Kappa.
And he was a Kappa. His first love was ministry. He loved reading God's word, and he would come up with a topic, and he would be like, come on, let's get into this word.
And he was a licensed minister.
Yes.
Yes.
So he loved the word of God. And just reading his journals after he passed away, definitely helped lighten the load.
Yes. So how many years have you been a Vilomah?
15.
15
Wow.
years.
15 years of Vilomah.
So what would you say today to Inez 15 years ago, March 14th?
I would say, learn the value of your peace. Be a good steward of your peace.
The journey continues next week.